At the beginning of 2019, Chinese company Huawei was on its path to become the biggest tech giant in the world. However, from the beginning of the century, Huawei has been accused of shady practices. In 2001, it was placed on a watch list by India's intelligence for allegedly supplying the Taliban with military telecommunications equipment. Then, in 2003, Cisco accused Huawei of stealing its source code. Then, in 2007, the US government blocked a deal between 3Com and Huawei due to national security concerns. And then again in 2010, Motorola sued Huawei for corporate espionage. So considering their history, it can be said that the company cannot be trusted. But it was the year 2018 when things really started to heat up. First, Verizon Wireless dropped Huawei as a phone supplier in January. Then, AT&T refused to sell Huawei Mate 10s, and T-Mobile promised no Huawei tech was going to be used in its 5G network. After all of this, heads of the 6 US intelligence agencies warned against the use of Huawei and ZTE products, and soon a memo leaked from the Trump administration around this time which said that the Chinese companies were a threat when it came to 5G networks. Subsequently, Huawei was banned in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and the Pentagon banned Huawei devices on military bases. Then in 2019, things got even crazier. The US formally charged Huawei with 13 crimes, including bank fraud, dealing with Iran, IP theft, and more, which the company either denied or deflected. And then the US added Huawei to its entity list. The entity list contains the list of companies which are unable to do business with any organization that operates in the United States. This led to announcements from Google, Intel, Qualcomm, ARM, and others that they will comply with the US order and stop working with the company. In a nutshell, these trade restrictions not only prevent Huawei from expanding to foreign markets, but also hinders their supply in countries in which they previously traded. However, Huawei is not looking to back down and is planning to completely remove the Android ecosystem from its devices. So let's talk about how Huawei is planning to make a comeback. Huawei is planning to launch its own operating system called Harmony OS after Google restrained Huawei from having access to apps like YouTube, Gmail, Google Drive, and more. But this can be a little bit difficult. The Google Play Store is the largest app market with over 2.5 million apps, even larger than Apple's App Store. You might have heard of the Windows Phone. They did everything right but struggled to attract developers to build apps for the Windows Phone. And due to the lack of these apps, users didn't consider Windows phones. However, Huawei knows the importance of apps. While Huawei is unable to use Google-owned services and products in its phones, this doesn't mean that it cannot use Android itself. Android is basically an open-source operating system, which means that any person or company can use it for whatever they like without paying for it. So theoretically, you can make a smartphone which can run Android apps without depending on Google services. However, since Huawei devices can't use the Play Store, as it's Google-owned, Huawei is trying to get developers to upload their apps on their version of Play Store called App Gallery. The only thing developers would have to do is upload their existing Android apps to App Gallery without any changes in code. For early adopters, it can be a huge boom as they would face very less competition compared to what they would face in the Play Store and App Store. But now the question is, how would the apps work without Google Play services? Google Play services play a pivotal role in the smooth working of apps on Android devices. Basically, without Play services, none of your apps would work properly. So in order to combat this problem, Huawei is working on Huawei Mobile Services. The main goal of Huawei Mobile Services is to fill the void which Google Play services left, and provide developers more flexibility so that they can use hardware more efficiently. Now let's talk about the operating system. Similar to Android, Harmony OS is also an open source operating system based on Linux, which means everyone has access to the original source code and has the right to distribute and modify it without any restrictions. Google is banned in China, so smartphone manufacturers in China would have no reason to not switch from Android to Harmony OS, as Harmony OS would be able to run all the apps which any Android phone can. Harmony OS is a microkernel-based distributed operating system, which means Harmony OS isn't device-specific. For example, iPhone has iOS, iPad has iPad OS, and Mac has Mac OS. And similarly, Android phones have Android OS, and watches compatible with Android mostly have Wear OS. But in the case of Harmony OS, the same operating system would be able to run on smartphones, watches, refrigerators, televisions, and more, making it easier for developers to develop apps for Harmony OS. Similar to Apple's ecosystem, if you're on a call on your iPhone and you turn on your Mac, then you will get in-call options like hanging up or putting it on hold on your laptop screen. With Harmony OS, Huawei is targeting both Android and Apple's ecosystems. It is basically trying to integrate the best of both in its OS. In 2016, Huawei boasted that it would be the world's #1 smartphone manufacturer by the end of 2020. But in reality, we are looking at a completely different picture. Without Google Apps, Huawei basically cannot compete in markets other than China. Although the Mate 30 series, which had Harmony OS, sold well in Huawei's native China, and had comfortable sales throughout the rest of the world, it was not a huge success. In addition to Google-owned apps like YouTube and Gmail, third-party apps like Uber also don't work on it because Uber is integrated with Google Maps, and since Google Maps isn't available on Harmony OS, thus you cannot use Uber. Huawei exclusively uses its own line of processors called Kirin in its smartphones and tablets. These processors are designed by Huawei and then produced by a company called TSMC. TSMC is based in Taiwan, and it assured that it would continue to produce Huawei chipsets. But after the ban, it rolled back on its declaration, and without TSMC, Huawei basically cannot create Kirin chipsets. Now the question is, can Huawei survive? Well, the US cannot touch Huawei's Chinese business. Huawei has a very good reputation in China, and it could continue to work smoothly for decades if it only operates in China. But as said before, Huawei refuses to give up. It cannot use Google, but it can still use Android. It cannot use the Play Store, but App Gallery is getting stronger. It cannot make its own processors, but it can buy chips from other companies. Now the question is, how can it prevent losing its market share, and how fast it can get people to adopt its completely new operating system? Thanks for watching. For more awesome content, subscribe to discover.